those who are identifiable, recognizable, but who still await proper identification. Then you are left with 62 remains of those who are not recognizable. So in terms of the process there now, is that the postmortems are being done, because by law that's what should happen in a natural death. So already, as of today, 25 postmortems have been done. By Sunday, all the postmortems, including, in other words, all the 74, because even those who are recognizable, postmortems have to be done to have a pathologist report. So all the 74 postmortems will have been finished by Sunday. Those who are recognizable ones, the relatives, as we said, 8 have already, the relatives have come forward. Then once the postmortem reports have been done by Sunday, those will be free to take their loved ones for burial. And then we're hoping that also the other 4 who are recognizable family members would have come forward, because the postmortems would have been done. Now we remain with the 62 who are not recognizable. In terms of those, the only way forward now is the DNA identification. That's the only mode of identification. So there's some progress in that regard, in the sense that there are 29 people who have come forward to provide 45 names of people who they believe would have been in that building. So we've got 25 people who've come forward and give the names are there of the 45 who they believe would have been amongst those who demised. So that 45 accounts for some of the 62. And then the process now is to get, because you now have to, if somebody comes forward and say, I believe so-and-so who is my brother or my sister or, was in the building. Now you need to verify that story. That's what, between our team and the police, they are working on. So in that regard, there were 10 which were sort of, of those people who came forward who made sense, where the stories were making sense. So those 10, they have already taken samples of their DNA, who are saying some of the people deceased are their relatives. So they will continue to, listen to the presentation, and more people whose presentation makes sense, they will take more samples, so that if indeed the story sounds credible, that they have relatives amongst the 62. And in the process, as the postmortems are being done, they are also taking samples for DNA testing. So in due course, once the postmortems have been done, the police would then be having the samples of all, even the 62 who are not recognizable. They will then end up with the DNA reports of all the 62. And then hopefully, as more relatives come, as they take samples, then through the IT systems, they will be able to be matching, to say, these are the DNA records of the 62 who can be recognized. So many, by a certain period, there may be 30, 40 family members, because now, but the 10 are not only accounting for 10 remains, they actually account for 19 of the remains, because some of those 10 who have come forward and given credible identification of their relatives, to say, so some of those were saying they are missing more than one person. So some have got 2, some have got 3. So at the end, when you link the 10 whose samples have been taken, they are claiming 19 of the remains as possibly theirs. So as more people come, we're hoping that in due course, by the time, maybe, and there's a hope that, because the mortuary will remain open on the weekend, we are hoping, calling on people to come forward. As more people come, and as they give credible stories, There are samples being taken. We're hoping that in due course, those claim of a relationship could actually match the 62. And then what will be left will be really just to run through their results of their DNA and the results from the remains of the 62.
Minister, what is the nationality of the 8 who have been positively identified, but also nationalities of those who came forward to claim or perhaps looking for their loved ones?
Well, in terms of those who claim, there are South Africans amongst them. There are quite a number of Malawians. There are also Zimbabweans and also Tanzanians who have also come forward. In the 29 who have come. In terms of the 8, you could maybe help us with the 8 as to whether they are all South Africans, those who have been the recognized one who have been identified.
We can say because they are all in the Muslim community, and we were informed that they are all from Malawi.
Okay.
The Muslim community were here, even with the 4 that still have to be claimed by the families. We were informed that they are from Malawi because of their Muslim religion connection.
Yeah.
Minister, if you're able to tell us how long will the DNA tests take, because there's obviously a concern that they might take long, which would then prolong the agony for these families.
Well, the DNA for the 62 are not recognizable. That shouldn't take a lot of time. I'm sure as the postmortems are done, samples are being taken by next week. They should have all the DNA results. The difficulty is not that one. The DNA records of the deceased will be available as the postmortems get finished and the samples. The difficult part is the matching, because you've got the names which are provided by the relatives, those who are presenting as relatives. They say Peter Phaahla and so on. You don't have an ID. You don't have any documentation. It's what I come and say. The deceased, amongst those deceased, there is a John Phaahla, and then you have to you do the DNA and get the records, and then as a relative, I must match some of the DNA of the deceased. So that process is the one which is going to be, because again, just to emphasize that it must be somebody where there is some blood relation, some distant Malome and some uncle and so on, it will not match. So those are the difficulties which you need to get siblings, you need to get parents, and we're just saying here, I mean, it's a matter which we must accept, that preferably on the parental side, if it's where parents are still alive, it will have to, you will rely more on mothers. You will understand why, in terms of why, sometimes in terms of who's the father, when it comes to actual DNA, can become difficult. So on that part, you rely on the mothers and the siblings. Yeah. So that is the difficulty. The actual one of the deceased is not a big number. So the laboratory, our laboratories with the police, they should be able to complete that by next week.
Minister, it would appear that many of the people who are victims of that inferno are foreign nationals. We were just looking at your colleague, Minister of Social Development, Lindy Wesulu, trying to convince the people who are refusing to go to the shelters because they fear that they may be arrested and be deported if they go there. You're also more or less facing a similar dilemma of people who may not want to come here because they would think that police would arrest them. Can you give assurance that when they come here as authorities, those who perhaps are in the country illegally, they won't be arrested and deported? Otherwise, the priority would be to identify the deceased.
Definitely, this is a tragedy and a crisis. So, I mean, we don't have authority to say the immigration laws of the country should be set aside. But in the interest of resolving the tragedy, we'll work together. Health, police, home affairs, we all working together, social development, the whole of government, we will work together to solve this issue. And then the issues in terms of whether people have papers will come later. So we will want to encourage those who have, who know the people who demised in this tragedy. They must not really put in the forefront the issue of the fear, because that's not really the main issue here. It's just to get this resolved so that those who have demised, the remains can be connected with their families and have a closure. And then the issues about, documentation with our colleagues in Home Affairs, they will process those. But we're not going to say, because you've come forward, then say the police must arrest you because you are illegal. That will not really be helpful.
Minister, talk to us about the resources that you've had to put together. You speak to us now, you tell us that you've done about 25 postmortems. That obviously would have required a big team to conduct and complete in a day. So did you have to bring in more doctors who will conduct these postmortems? And at what cost really is that coming? Does it mean pulling doctors from other facilities and slowing down the processes there?
The MEC can deal with that. She's been with her team. They've been managing that part.
We are using the resources that we have. At the moment, we have not pulled out any doctors because already we're in a process of employing doctors. Last week, we brought 2 doctors already that we have signed that are working. In fact, we're beefing our own capacity. But now the tragedy is here. We're still managing it without any other resource that we take. Even to other 11 pathology offices that we have not taken that. We're only focusing here in Diepkloof and using the ones that are in Hillbrow because we always interchange them. Hillbrow and Diepkloof, they work together.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, colleagues.
You'll help us to get the people to, to trust us that they will not be arrested. They must come here, please. We want to get closure on this matter.
And counseling?
Counseling, I think
here. We have offices here that we're doing counseling.
All right, they are watching, Minister. And the message will obviously be amplified. The Minister of Health, Dr. Joe Phaahla, also with the MEC of Health, Ralohoko, and who are saying that up to now, at least 8 bodies have been identified positively, and all of those are from Malawi. They obviously are opening the door, calling on people to continue coming here to identify. And that dilemma of people who possibly do not have papers to be in the country, the minister, the same way we heard his colleague Lindiwe Zulu, Marcel, saying that it shouldn't be really a big issue. Come over to help identify the bodies of the people who are in this mortuary.
Okay, our reporter Moloko Moloto joining us live there from Soweto, where he brought us the very latest comments from the Health Minister. And the Health Minister saying there at the end, help us get the message out there so that we can help these people gain closure. Very powerful words, quite fresh in the middle of the story as they still struggle to identify so many bodies. I believe he said earlier in that briefing, 62 of those bodies have been burnt beyond recognition.